Hello, everyone, and welcome back. Today we are looking at the Discril class attack cruiser. These are small capital ships originally built for the defense fleet of planet Deferium. I hope I'm pronouncing it correctly. I probably am not. All right, so going into the history of this, it's not a big write up that we have. Through the Discril class, or though the Discril class was a mere corvette by the Imperial Navy standards, they served as the main attack vessel of the Deferium Marine Corps during the Deferium-Botar conflict. Their armament was adequate for skirmishes between low-tech fleets, but the Deferium planet states eventually realized that they were falling behind the technology curve, if I can only speak here. Okay, and the Deceli class was slowly phased out of service around the time of the Battle of Yavin. Many of these ships were stored away in reserve, and others were scrapped, but some made their way into the galaxy at large. A few legally sold on the used arms market, and at least one was stolen by its captain. These served especially well as pirate vessels. The crime lord Rikaz had several Discril class in the fleet that attacked Exokron in 19 ABY. Being behind the scenes, the name of the ship's world of origin had been spelled as Deferium or Deferium and possibly Defirm. Deferium is the most numerous spelling, but Deferium was used in the latest source. Kind of a tongue twister here. So we have Visions of the Future, which is where this comes from. And then we also have Kraken's Rebel Operatives, which is where it was first mentioned. Pirates and Privateers, which is where this kind of comes from, are for our stats here, and then the complete Star Wars Encyclopedia. Okay, all right, so moving back into our stats here, the kind of outline picture is the only picture I'd ever really seen of this. So I really did not know what this fully looked like because this is how we originally got to see it in the Pirates and Privateers book. So going from what we have here, this is from the Old Republic. It's a system attack cruiser, capital scale, has an 85-meter length, has a crew of 150, 51 gunners, and a skeleton crew is required at a 75, and it does give a penalty. You need a plus 10 to any difficulty that you're doing. We can hold about 60 troops, has cargo capacity of 7,800 metric tons, and we have about 2 weeks of consumables. So not a very long-lasting duration kind of cruises for a ship like this. Um, at a cost of 500,000 credits used, has a hyperdrive of times 3, a backup of a times 20, and then, of course, a ship like this is going to have a nav computer, and we have a maneuverability of 1D. Has a space of 5D, so it's not the most um, it's not the speediest ship out in the fleet, but it's not that bad. But it really isn't the fastest ship that you're going to see floating around in a fleet. Has a hull of 4D, shields of 1D. So being an older ship, the shields are a little bit more rudimentary than what you would probably hope, but there it is. Sensor packet. We have passive sensors that can go out to 3 kilometers. We have an active scan that can go out to 6 kilometers. Our search can go out to 9 kilometers, and our focus is 300 meters. So looking at our weapon systems, as we have a nice, wonderful view of this, which shows us really what the ship really looks like. We have 5 laser cannons. These are on turrets, has a crew of 4 for each cannon, has a fire control of 1D plus 1, and does 4 damage. Now this is at capital scale. So um, we have some cannons that are off on the side that I'm going to guess these are those, and there's probably one in the front somewhere. That's going to be my guess, unless there's one in the rear. We have 4 tri-particle beamers, which are these big cannons here on the side. They are front facing. They require a crew of 2 each. Fire control of 2D, has a damage of 3D. So these aren't the most powerful guns out there, um, but they have a very long range at 100 kilometers. Much like the laser cannons can go out to 150 kilometers. And then we also have 4 tri-laser cannons. So somewhere in here, and this is where it really kind of gets confusing. These are starfighter scale, requires a 6 crew each, and has a fire control of 1D. So now I don't know where these are going to be. I really don't know where we're putting these. If I'm saying that these are our tri-particle beamers, where's our 4 tri-laser cannons? And again, it's front facing, so I don't know where these are going to be. We do have, looks like 2 Ching cannons here, so I don't know if that means that one is a set of 4, and that's how we're doing this, or however it's working out, but you kind of see how this is working, right? All right, these are starfighter scale. Has a fire control of 1D, does have a damage of 4D. So being older weapons and having bigger crews like this, if you remember how George Lucas had kind of portrayed in um, Revenge of the Sith, when we have the ships doing broadsides and they're shooting at each other, and they have like these big energy canisters to propel the laser beams going back and forth. I'm going to guess that it's going to be something closer to that idea on this. Um, so you really get something along that line. You know, you're going to have something that's very heavy crewed, that you're going to need people obviously moving in essentially energy shells over to the cannon, so that way they can keep uh, replenishing. And if you have tri-lasers, so you have 3 of them, you're going to need essentially one person handing off to someone else that then loads it in, right? So you think of it in that terms. Um, but it is a very interesting looking ship, and it's got a neck down here, which also shows like our bridge and our command structure. So almost like it is, to say it in this regard, a reverse version of what we get out of like Star Trek, where this is a secondary hull, um, but this is where our bridge is. Where in Star Trek we would be going the opposite direction, and this would be our bridge up here, and this would be our secondary hull down here. So it is an interesting thing, and keep in mind it has been said by both, I believe, Lucas as well as um, Roddenberry, that they are 2 sides of the same coin. So ideas that came from one can go to the other, and back and forth and back and forth. So, you know, always keep that in mind, that sometimes you look at it and say, well, this is obviously this and this is obviously that. Sometimes they fed off of each other just for the enjoyment. And when we look at how movies were done, especially when we look at the prequel trilogies, we have ILM doing all the CGI and all that stuff. But ILM was also doing Star Trek stuff. So some of the guys like the other stuff as well, and they would sneak things in there. There are reports, and if you can find it, wonderful. I still have yet to try and find it. Um, There are some spots where you will actually see some Starfleet ships going by the screen. And if I remember correctly, I believe it's in episode 2, as they're in front of one of the windows or whatever. In the background with the traffic is supposed to be a couple Starfleet ships in there. Now, I've never seen them myself, but it's reported they're in there. I can only say that it's reported. I have not personally seen it myself, because usually I'm looking in the foreground, not the background. Um, just one of those things. But it's an interesting ship, an interesting design. Um, Seeing it's an older ship, an older design, it does bring a lot of wonderful thoughts into things. It's not a bad looking ship all in all. Although when we look at our stats, it doesn't say anything about an atmosphere in here. So in that regard, um, I don't think this ship is actually meant for atmospheric flight. Now, not to say it couldn't, and there again, people are going to kind of come up with different ways of how we would land this down onto a planet. I'm sure that they would have specialized docking bays. There might even be some specialized landing struts for this. Um, there's numerous ways to do it. They could always just kind of hover there onto one of the platforms and then offload people or whatever as well. There's other ways of doing things. So, with that being said, hope you're enjoying the series. It still is and always is a wonderful thing to bring these old ships that have been in books but not really brought out to the public eye, and being able to bring this out to you. So, hope you're enjoying it. Hope you're having a wonderful day. We'll see you in the next video.